The champagne flutes clinked like tiny bells around me, a sound that once meant celebration, but now felt like mockery. I stood in the corner of the Grand Meridian Ballroom, my fingers wrapped around a silver tray so tightly my knuckles had gone white. The scent of expensive perfume and aged whiskey hung thick in the air, mixing with the fragrance of imported roses that decorated every surface. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across marble floors, and everywhere I looked, wealth dripped from every corner. The kind of wealth I'd once foolishly believed I'd belong to. I was invisible here. Just another server in a crisp white shirt and black vest, hair pulled back severely, makeup minimal. Exactly how I preferred it these days. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant I could work my shift, collect my paycheck, and go home to the small apartment where my daughter Sophia slept, unaware of how far we'd fallen. "More champagne here," someone called, and I moved mechanically through the crowd, refilling glasses, collecting empties, keeping my eyes down. The Ashford Hotel's annual charity gala, the irony wasn't lost on me. I'd attended this event 3 years ago as a guest, wearing a gown that cost more than I now made in 6 months. My arm linked through Derek's as he worked the room with his lawyer's charm and politician's smile. Now I was serving drinks to people who'd once called me friend. The ballroom doors opened, and I felt it before I saw it, a shift in the atmosphere, like the pressure change before a storm. Conversations didn't stop exactly, but they softened, became more aware. I glanced up reflexively and immediately wished I hadn't. 3 men entered. The 2 flanking were clearly security, broad-shouldered, alert, their eyes scanning the room with professional precision. But it was the man in the center who commanded attention without saying a word. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than a car, tailored so perfectly it seemed painted on. Dark hair swept back from a face that was all sharp angles and dangerous beauty, the kind of face that belonged in Renaissance paintings of fallen angels. Even from across the room, I could see the scar that cut through his left eyebrow, a thin white line that somehow made him more intimidating rather than less. But it was his eyes that caught me, dark, almost black, and when they swept across the room, people actually stepped back slightly, as if making way for a predator. I turned away quickly, focusing on my tray. Whoever he wasn't my concern. I had 4 more hours on this shift. Then I needed to get home to relieve my neighbor who was watching Sophia. My daughter was everything now, the only thing that mattered after, well, if it isn't my dear ex-wife. My entire body went rigid. That voice, God, that voice still had the power to make my skin crawl. Derek stood before me, drink in hand, that familiar smirk playing at his lips. He'd gained weight since the divorce, his face slightly puffy from too much good living. Beside him stood Melissa, of course, Melissa, her hand possessive on his arm, her diamond ring catching the light. My replacement. The woman he'd been sleeping with for the last year of our marriage, Derek. I kept my voice flat, professional. "Can I get you anything?" His smirk widened. "Look at you, serving drinks. How the mighty have fallen." I felt rather than saw people starting to notice. Conversations nearby grew quieter. Heat crawled up my neck, but I kept my expression neutral. "If you'll excuse me, I have other guests. Remember when you wore Dior to this event?" Melissa's voice was sugar-sweet poison. "Now you're wearing, what, polyester?" She laughed, a tinkling sound that made me want to throw my tray at her perfect face. "At least I earned this honestly," I said quietly, starting to turn away. Derek's hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop me. "Don't walk away when I'm talking to you. You still owe me, remember? That little stunt you pulled, trying to claim you deserved alimony when you brought nothing to the marriage." "I brought 5 years of my life," I said, my voice low but steady despite the trembling in my hands. "I supported you through law school. You were a secretary," he sneered. "A nobody who got lucky when I married you. And look at you now, back where you belong, serving your betters." The words hit like physical blows. Around us, I could feel the stares, hear the whispers. My face burned with humiliation, but I couldn't seem to move, couldn't seem to defend myself. Because part of me, a horrible, broken part, believed him. Actually, a voice cut through the moment like a blade. "She looks exactly where she belongs." though I'm curious why Trash is allowed to speak to her. The voice was deep, accented slightly. Italian, maybe, or somewhere Mediterranean, and carried the kind of authority that made Derek's hand fall away from my wrist immediately. The man in the black suit stood 3 feet away. Up close, he was even more striking and terrifying. His eyes, fixed on Derek, held something cold and lethal. One of his security detail had moved closer, hand resting casually inside his jacket in a way that made my heart race. I'm sorry. Who are you? Derek tried to sound authoritative, but his voice cracked slightly. The man didn't answer. Instead, those dark eyes shifted to me, and I felt pinned by the intensity of his gaze. He studied my face for a long moment, something flickering in his expression. Recognition. Impossible. I'd never seen this man before in my life. "You're bleeding," he said softly, and I looked down confused to see a thin line of blood on my wrist where Derek's watch had scratched me when he grabbed me. It was nothing. A tiny scrape. But the temperature in the air seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Did he hurt you?" The question was directed at me, but his eyes never left Derek, who had gone very pale. No, it's just a scratch. My words tumbled over each other. "Marco?" He didn't raise his voice, but one of the security men stepped forward immediately. "Please escort this gentleman outside. Ensure he understands that putting hands on staff members is unacceptable." "Now wait Derek started, but Marco's hand landed on his shoulder, and whatever he saw in the man's face made him shut up immediately. "You can't do this." Melissa's voice was shrill. "Do you know who we are? Derek is a partner at Henderson & Associates. We have connections." The dangerous man finally looked at her, and she actually took a step back. "I know exactly who you are, and after tonight, so will everyone else who matters. Now, would you like to leave with your dignity, or shall I have you removed as well?" They left. Derek, red-faced and blustering, and Melissa, her heels clicking frantically on the marble as Marco escorted them toward the exit. The crowd parted for them like water. I stood frozen, my tray forgotten, my heart hammering against my ribs. The man turned back to me, and up close, I could see details I'd missed, tiny flecks of gold in those dark eyes. The way his jaw tightened when he looked at my wrist, the expensive cologne that smelled like cedar and something darker, more exotic. "Are you all right?" he asked. And his voice had gentled somehow, though the danger still lurked underneath like a sleeping dragon. Yes, thank you. You didn't have to." "I did." He said it with such finality that I didn't know how to respond. "What's your name?" "Emma. Emma Hartley." The words came out barely above a whisper. "Emma." He repeated it like he was tasting it. "A pleasure to meet you, though I wish it were under better circumstances. I'm Mr. Castellano." The hotel manager appeared, wringing his hands nervously. "Sir, I apologize if there was any disturbance." There was. Those dark eyes didn't leave my face. "Your staff member was assaulted by a guest. I trust you'll be reviewing your security protocols?" Of course. And Miss Hartley, are you—" "She needs a break," Castellano said. "It wasn't a suggestion. At least 15 minutes. And someone should tend to that scratch." "Absolutely. Emma, please take a break in the staff room. I'll have—" "No." The single word stopped the manager mid-sentence. Castellano reached into his jacket. I tensed involuntarily and pulled out a pristine white handkerchief embroidered with initials I couldn't quite read. He held it out to me. "For your wrist." I took it with trembling fingers, our hands not quite touching but close enough that I could feel the heat of his skin. "Thank you," I managed. "The private terrace upstairs is empty," he said. "You should take your break there. Fresh air will help." How did he know I felt like I couldn't breathe? How did he know that the walls of this ballroom were closing in, that the stares of the other guests were suffocating me? Okay. I clutched his handkerchief, my tray abandoned on a nearby table. He nodded once, a gesture that somehow held approval and dismissal at the same time. As I turned to leave, his voice stopped me. "Emma." I looked back. He was watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "That man is wrong about you. Remember that." Then he turned and walked back into the crowd, his security flanking him, and conversations resumed as if nothing had happened. But I noticed people giving him a wide berth. Noticed the way even the most powerful people in the room seemed to defer to him without him saying a word. I fled to the staff elevator, my hands shaking so badly I could barely press the button. The terrace was on the 3rd floor, accessible through a small hallway the staff used for break rooms. I'd never been up there, but I knew it existed. The fresh air hit my face like a blessing when I finally pushed through the door. The terrace was small, private, with a few chairs and a view of the city lights stretching endlessly below. I collapsed into one of the chairs, pressing Castellano's handkerchief against my wrist, even though the bleeding had already stopped. The fabric was soft, expensive. The initials I could see now in the terrace lights were LC. Who was he? And why had he intervened? Men like that didn't help women like me. They didn't notice servers being humiliated by their ex-husbands. They certainly didn't threaten to have paying guests removed. Unless... My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Mrs. Chen, my neighbor. Sophia asking for you. She's fine, but missing Mama. How much longer? Guilt crashed over me. My baby girl, waiting for me while I was here being humiliated, being reminded of everything I'd lost, everything I'd failed to. You didn't come back. I spun around so fast I nearly fell out of the chair. Castellano stood in the doorway, backlit by the hallway lights, his expression unreadable. One of his security men was visible behind him, a silent shadow. I'm sorry, I just needed a moment. I'll go back down. No. He stepped onto the terrace, and I noticed he moved with a predator's grace, each step deliberate and controlled. You misunderstand. I came to ensure you were all right. You. Why? The question escaped before I could stop it. Something flickered across his face. Amusement? Sadness? It was gone too quickly to identify. Let's just say I have a particular distaste for men who abuse their power over those they perceive as weaker. He moved to the edge of the terrace, looking out over the city. Without the crowd around him, without the immediate display of power, he seemed almost human. Though something in the set of his shoulders, the way he automatically positioned himself to see both me and the door, suggested this man was never entirely relaxed. I should get back to work, I said, standing. Thank you again for... Have dinner with me. The words hung in the air between us. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. I'm sorry? He turned to face me fully, and in the dim light of the terrace, his features seemed carved from shadow and moonlight. Dinner. Tomorrow night. I'd like to take you to dinner. I don't understand. It's quite simple, really. I'd like to know you better. And you look like you could use a night where someone serves you instead of the reverse. My heart was racing, and not entirely from fear anymore. This was insane. Men like him didn't ask women like me to dinner. This had to be some kind of trick, some kind of... I have a daughter, I blurted out. I'm a single mother, I work 2 jobs, I'm broke, I'm divorced, and I'm nobody important. You should know that before... Before what? His lips quirked slightly. Before I waste my time? Yes. He took a step closer, and I should have stepped back, but I couldn't seem to move. Emma, I know exactly who you are. The daughter in question is Sophia, age 4, who attends Little Stars preschool and likes strawberry ice cream. You work here 3 nights a week and at the cafe on Brennan Street 4 mornings a week. Your ex-husband left you with nothing but debt, and you've been rebuilding your life piece by piece for the last 2 years with remarkable determination. My blood went cold. How do you... I make it my business to know things. His voice was soft, but held an edge of steel, especially when I'm interested in someone. That's insane. That's stalking. You should say yes to dinner. He pulled out a card, black, embossed with gold lettering. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock. A car will pick you up. Bring Sophia if you like. I've been told I'm quite good with children. He pressed the card into my hand, his fingers brushing mine for just a moment. The touch sent electricity racing up my arm. I don't even know you, I whispered. Then dinner will be an excellent opportunity to change that. He moved toward the door, his security stepping back to let him pass. At the threshold, he paused and looked back. Oh, and Emma, your ex-husband won't bother you again. I've made certain of that. Wait. What does that mean? What did you do? But he was already gone, his footsteps fading down the hallway, leaving me alone on the terrace with his handkerchief, his card, and the terrifying feeling that my life had just taken a turn into very dangerous territory. I looked down at the card. The name embossed in gold letters seemed to pulse in the dim light. Lorenzo Castellano. Below it, a phone number. Nothing else. No title, no company name. Nothing that would indicate who or what he was. But I knew. Somewhere deep in my gut, I knew. And the most terrifying part was the tiny voice in my head that whispered, "Say yes." I didn't sleep that night. Sophia curled against me in our small bed, her breathing soft and even, her tiny hand clutching her stuffed rabbit. I stared at the ceiling, watching shadows shift as cars passed outside our window, Lorenzo Castellano's card burning a hole in my consciousness, even though I'd tucked it into my nightstand drawer. I make it my business to know things. The words replayed in my mind on an endless loop. He knew about Sophia, about my jobs, about the cafe where I served coffee to morning commuters who rarely bothered to learn my name. How long had he been watching, and why? The rational part of my brain screamed danger. Men who knew that much about you before you'd even met were dangerous. Men who could have someone like Derek, a successful lawyer with connections, removed from a party with a single word, were powerful in ways I couldn't begin to understand. But there was another part of me, a part I'd thought Derek had killed, that felt something else entirely. When Lorenzo had looked at me, really looked at me, I hadn't felt invisible. For the first time in 2 years, someone had seen me. Not the struggling single mother, not the failure, not the server in the polyester vest. Me. You look like you could use a night where someone serves you instead of the reverse. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. 3:47 a.m. Who would text at this hour? I reached for it carefully, not wanting to wake Sophia, and felt my heart stop when I saw the message from an unknown number. "You're awake. You should rest. Tomorrow will be eventful." I stared at the screen, my pulse racing. How did he know I was awake? Was someone watching the apartment? I went to the window, peering through the thin curtains at the street below. A black car sat parked 3 buildings down, engine off, windows tinted dark. My phone buzzed again. "Don't be afraid. The car is there for your protection, not surveillance. Sleep, Emma. I should have been terrified. I should have called the police." Instead, I found myself texting back. "Protection from what?" The response came immediately, "From anyone who might wish to harm you. Your ex-husband made phone calls tonight. Angry calls. Men like him don't appreciate being humiliated in front of their peers." My blood ran cold. Derek. God, I hadn't even thought about how he'd react after being thrown out. He'd always had a temper, always needed to feel in control. During our marriage, I'd learned to make myself smaller, quieter, to avoid triggering it. What kind of calls? The kind that required intervention. He won't bother you again. You have my word. I sat down on the edge of the bed, my hands shaking. This was insane. All of it. And yet, who are you? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. When the message finally came, it was brief. Someone who would very much like to have dinner with you. 7 o'clock. The car will be there at 6:45. I should say no. Every instinct of self-preservation I possessed screamed at me to block this number, throw away his card, and pretend last night never happened. Instead, I typed, "Just me. Sophia stays with my neighbor." The response was almost instant. "As you wish, though the invitation stands for her as well. Whenever you're ready. Now sleep, Piccola. You're safe." I turned off my phone and lay back down, pulling Sophia closer. Through the curtains, I could just make out the dark shape of the car on the street below. I slept better than I had in months. The next morning brought chaos in the form of my manager at the cafe calling at 6 a.m. "Emma, thank God. Listen, something's happened with the schedule. Marcus called in sick, and Jenny's got that thing with her kid. And I know it's your day off, but..." "I can't," I said, still groggy. "I have plans tonight. Important plans." There was a pause. "Plans? Emma, you never have plans. Come on, just a few hours, I'll pay you time and a half." "No. The word came out firmer than I'd intended. I'm sorry, Rick, but no. I need tonight. Another pause. Longer this time. Okay. Yeah, okay. You sound different. Everything all right? Was it? I looked at my reflection in the bathroom mirror while Sophia sang to herself in the other room. I looked tired, thinner than I should be, my hair needing a cut I couldn't afford. But my eyes... There was something in my eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. I'm fine, I told Rick. I'll see you Thursday morning. After I hung up, I opened my closet and stared at the meager contents. Nothing appropriate for dinner with a man like Lorenzo Castellano. The best I had was a simple black dress I'd bought at a thrift store for a job interview last year. It was plain, a bit worn at the hem, but it was clean and fit well enough. It would have to do. The day crawled by with agonizing slowness. I took Sophia to the park, pushed her on the swings, made her lunch, read her stories. Normal things. Safe things. All while the clock ticked toward evening, and my stomach twisted itself into knots. At 5:30, I dropped Sophia at Mrs. Chen's apartment. You look nervous, Mrs. Chen observed, her sharp eyes missing nothing. This is about a man, yes? It's just dinner, I said, too quickly. Mm-hmm. She smiled knowingly. You go. Have good time. Sophia, stay here, no problem. She can sleep here if you're late. I won't be late. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure it was true. Back in my apartment, I showered and tried to do something with my hair. Makeup was minimal. I didn't have much, and what I had was drugstore cheap. The black dress looked even plainer than I remembered, but there was nothing to be done about it now. At exactly 6:45, my phone buzzed. Downstairs. I grabbed my purse, a small clutch that had survived the divorce, and headed down. My hands were shaking as I pushed through the building's entrance. The car waiting at the curb was nothing like the black sedan from last night. This was a Mercedes, sleek and black, with windows so darkly tinted they were almost mirrors. A man in a dark suit stood by the rear door, not one of the security guards from the hotel, but someone new. He was massive, easily 6'4", with a shaved head and a scar running down his neck. Miss Hartley, he said, his accent similar to Lorenzo's. I'm Dante. Mr. Castellano sent me to collect you. He opened the door, and I hesitated for just a moment before sliding into the back seat. The interior was luxury itself, cream leather, wood paneling, and that new car smell mixed with something else. Cedar and spice. Lorenzo's cologne. Dante slid into the driver's seat and pulled smoothly into traffic. I watched my neighborhood disappear in the rearview mirror. The cramped buildings, the corner store with its flickering neon sign, the bus stop where I stood every morning on my way to the cafe. Where are we going? I asked. Bella Vista, Dante replied. Mr. Castellano's restaurant, his restaurant. Of course, he owned a restaurant, probably several. Men like him didn't just make reservations. The drive took 20 minutes, carrying us from my working-class neighborhood into the city's heart, where buildings scraped the sky and every storefront gleamed with wealth. Bella Vista sat on a corner, unassuming from the outside except for the valet stand and the subtle elegance of its facade. Dante opened my door, and I stepped out onto pavement that probably cost more per square foot than my monthly rent. This way, Miss Hartley. Inside, the restaurant was intimate and impossibly elegant. Maybe 20 tables, each with pristine white linens and crystal glasses that caught the light from chandeliers overhead. The walls were exposed brick, softened by warm lighting and original artwork. The scent of garlic, wine, and fresh bread filled the air. Every table was occupied except one in the back corner, positioned so it had a view of both the entrance and the rest of the dining room. And at that table sat Lorenzo Castellano. He rose as I approached, and I had to suppress a sharp intake of breath. If he'd been devastating in a suit last night, he was utterly lethal now. Dark slacks and a charcoal dress shirt, open at the collar, sleeves rolled to reveal strong forearms. His hair was slightly mussed, as if he'd run his hands through it, and those dark eyes tracked my approach with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Emma. My name on his lips sounded like a prayer. You look beautiful. I almost laughed. Beautiful? In my thrift store dress and drugstore makeup? But something in his expression told me he meant it. Thank you for coming, he continued, pulling out my chair. His fingers brushed my shoulder as I sat, and that electric current from last night sparked again. A waiter appeared immediately, older, Italian, with kind eyes. "Ah, Miss Emma. Welcome, welcome. I am Giuseppe. Tonight you let me take care of everything, yes? We have special menu for special lady." I opened my mouth to protest, but Lorenzo shook his head slightly. "Giuseppe has been with my family for 30 years. Trust him. Your family owns this place? My grandfather opened it 40 years ago. My father expanded it. I inherited it." Something dark passed across his face when he said, "inherited." There and gone so quickly I almost missed it. Giuseppe returned with wine, red, rich, and probably worth more than I made in a week. Lorenzo raised his glass. "To new beginnings," he said. I touched my glass to his, the crystal singing softly. "I don't understand why I'm here, because I asked you. Men like you don't ask women like me to dinner." His jaw tightened. "Men like me? Powerful, wealthy, dangerous." I met his eyes steadily. "Yes, dangerous. Don't pretend you're not." For a long moment, he simply looked at me. Then, surprisingly, he smiled, a real smile that transformed his face from intimidating to breathtaking. "You're perceptive. Most people see what they want to see. You see clearly." He leaned forward slightly. "Yes, I'm dangerous. Yes, I'm powerful. But I would never harm you, Emma. That, I promise. Why not?" "Because you remind me of someone." The admission hung between us. I wanted to ask who, but Giuseppe returned with the first course. Bruschetta with tomatoes so fresh they must have been picked that morning. Buffalo mozzarella that melted on my tongue. Basil that tasted like summer. "Tell me about Sofia," Lorenzo said. I stiffened. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. What is she like? What makes her laugh? What are her dreams?" The questions caught me off guard. Not invasive, not prying. Just interested. As if he genuinely cared about the answer. So I told him. About how Sofia loved strawberries and refused to eat anything green. How she wanted to be a princess and a dinosaur simultaneously. How she asked a million questions a day and made up songs about everything. How she was the only thing that made sense in my world anymore. Lorenzo listened with complete attention, his eyes never leaving my face. He asked follow-up questions that showed he was actually hearing me, not just waiting for his turn to talk. "She sounds remarkable," he said finally. "Like her mother." Heat crept up my neck. "You don't know anything about me. I know you work 2 jobs to support your daughter. I know you left your marriage with nothing, because he convinced you that you deserved nothing. I know you're rebuilding your life with nothing but determination and love for your child." His voice dropped lower. "I know you're stronger than you believe yourself to be. How do you know about the divorce? I told you. I make it my business to know things." "That's not an answer." "No," he agreed. "It's not." The main course arrived. Osso buco that fell off the bone. Risotto so creamy it was almost sinful. Roasted vegetables that tasted like they'd been kissed by angels. I tried to eat delicately, tried to remember the table manners from my brief time as Derek's wife. But the food was so good I forgot to be self-conscious. Lorenzo barely touched his own plate. He just watched me with those dark, unreadable eyes. "You're not eating," I finally said. "I'm enjoying watching you enjoy it." "It's more satisfying. That's weird." He laughed. A real, genuine laugh that made something warm bloom in my chest. "Yes, I suppose it is. I've been told I'm intense. That's one word for it." His smile faded slightly. "Emma, I need to tell you something. About who I am. What I am." My heart started racing. "Okay." "My family." His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor changed. The warmth vanished, replaced by something cold and lethal. "Excuse me." He stood and walked toward the back of the restaurant, the phone to his ear. Even from across the room, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the deadly focus in his movements. Giuseppe appeared at my elbow. "More wine, Miss Emma? Actually, I need to use the restroom." He pointed toward a hallway near where Lorenzo had disappeared. I could hear his voice as I approached. Low, rapid Italian. The words harsh and clipped. I didn't speak Italian, but I recognized anger when I heard it. I ducked into the restroom quickly, my heart pounding. When I emerged a few minutes later, Lorenzo was back at the table, his expression carefully neutral. But I could see the storm still brewing beneath the surface. "Everything okay?" I asked, sliding back into my seat. "Nothing that concerns you." Then, seeing my expression, he softened. "I'm sorry. That was business. It's handled." "What kind of business?" His eyes met mine, and I saw the war in them. The desire to tell me the truth, versus the need to protect me from it. The kind that requires difficult decisions. He said finally. I should have left it there, should have smiled and changed the subject. Instead, I heard myself say, "Are you in the Mafia?" The question fell between us like a grenade. For a long moment, Lorenzo simply stared at me, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he leaned back in his chair. "Would it matter if I was? I have a daughter. I'm aware. She can't be around anything dangerous. I've worked too hard to give her a safe life too. Emma." He leaned forward, his hand reaching across the table, not touching me but close, so close I could feel the heat of his skin. "I would never put Sophia in danger. Or you. That's not..." He stopped, choosing his words carefully. "My business involves certain complications, but you and Sophia would be protected. Always." "That's not exactly a denial." "No," he agreed. "It's not." I should have stood up, should have walked out right then. Instead, I found myself asking, why me? Because when I saw him touch you, when I saw the way he made you feel small and worthless, I saw... He stopped, his jaw clenching. I saw someone who deserved better, someone who needed to remember her own worth. By involving me with a criminal? His lips quirked. "I prefer entrepreneur." Despite everything, I almost smiled. Almost. "I need to go," I said, standing. "This was a mistake. I appreciate the meal, but..." "Emma, wait." He stood too, and suddenly we were facing each other across the table, the air between us electric. "Give me a chance. One chance to show you that I'm more than whatever you're imagining right now." "Why should I?" "Because you feel it too, this connection between us. Tell me you don't feel it, and I'll have Dante drive you home right now." "You'll never hear from me again." I wanted to lie. God, I wanted to lie. But when I opened my mouth, the truth came out instead. "I feel it." Something blazed in his eyes. Triumph? Relief? Possession? Then stay. Finish dinner. And afterward, let me show you something. Against every instinct of self-preservation I had, I sat back down. I was either very brave or very, very stupid. I was beginning to suspect it was the latter. Dessert arrived. Tiramisu so light it seemed to float, paired with espresso that was liquid silk. Lorenzo had regained his composure, that dangerous edge sheathed beneath charm and attentiveness, but I could still see it lurking, like a knife hidden in a velvet glove. "The something you want to show me," I said, setting down my fork. "What is it?" "Patience, Piccola." The endearment rolled off his tongue like honey. "First, tell me about your marriage. What happened?" I stiffened. "That's not exactly light dinner conversation." "I don't do light conversation." His eyes held mine. "I want to know what he did to you. All of it. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the way he looked at me like I actually mattered. Maybe I was just tired of carrying it alone. Whatever the reason, I found myself talking. I met Derek at a law firm where I worked as a secretary. He was charming, successful, ambitious. He made me feel special, like I was more than just someone filing paperwork and answering phones. I traced the rim of my coffee cup. We got married fast, too fast. I thought it was romantic. It was really just impulsive. Lorenzo said nothing, just listened with that complete attention that made me feel like the only person in the world. For the first year, it was good, or I thought it was. He worked long hours, but I told myself that was normal for a lawyer. I supported him, made sure he had clean clothes, hot meals, a peaceful home to come back to. I laughed bitterly. I made myself into whatever he needed. And slowly, I disappeared. When did it change? When I got pregnant. The words came out thick. He didn't want children. Said it wasn't the right time, we needed to focus on his career. But I was so happy I thought once Sophia was born he'd fall in love with her the way I had. I blinked back tears. He didn't. He saw her as an inconvenience, saw me as an anchor holding him back. Lorenzo's hand had curled into a fist on the table. I noticed his knuckles were white. That's when Melissa entered the picture. His paralegal, young, ambitious, childless, everything I wasn't anymore. The divorce was ugly. He had better lawyers. He convinced the judge that I'd been a financial burden, that I'd contributed nothing to the marriage. I left with Sophia, some clothes, and debt from his credit cards he'd put in my name. He should be dead. The words were spoken so calmly, so matter-of-factly, that it took a moment for them to register. Lorenzo, I'm serious. A man who abandons his child, who destroys his wife for his own convenience, who leaves you both with nothing. He doesn't deserve to breathe. The scary part was, I could see he meant it. Not hyperbole, not exaggeration. He was genuinely considering it. He's not worth going to prison over, I said quietly. Lorenzo's smile was sharp as a blade. Who said anything about prison? Before I could respond, Dante appeared at the table. He leaned close to Lorenzo, whispering something I couldn't hear. Lorenzo's expression darkened. How many? 3. In a van down the street. They've been there for 20 minutes. My stomach dropped. What's happening? Lorenzo stood smoothly, buttoning his jacket. A minor complication, nothing to concern yourself with. He looked at Dante. Get her to the car. Take the back exit. Marco and Gio will handle our friends. Wait, what? I stood too, my heart racing. What's going on? Emma. Lorenzo's hands came to my shoulders, firm but gentle. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? You're scaring me. Good. Fear keeps you smart. He turned to Dante. If anything happens to her, nothing will happen to her boss. You have my word. Lorenzo's thumb brushed across my cheek. So quickly I almost thought I'd imagined it. Then he was moving toward the front of the restaurant. His entire bearing changed. He looked like a general walking into battle. Miss Emma, this way, quickly now. Dante's hand was at my elbow, guiding me toward the back of the restaurant. Giuseppe appeared from the kitchen, his kind face now creased with worry. There is a car in the alley, he said. Dante, you take good care of our guest, yes? Always. The kitchen was a maze of stainless steel and heat, chefs working with focused intensity while trying not to stare at us. Dante moved me through it with surprising gentleness for such a large man, his body always positioned between me and any potential threat. The back door opened into a narrow alley. A second Mercedes idled there, identical to the one that had brought me. Dante opened the door. Inside, please. What about Lorenzo? Mr. Castellano can take care of himself. Your safety is my only concern right now. I slid into the back seat, my hands shaking. Through the tinted windows, I could barely make out the alley, but I heard it. Shouting, the sound of breaking glass. Something that might have been gunshots, but surely couldn't be. Not really. Not in the middle of the city. The car door opened, and Lorenzo slid in beside me, completely unruffled except for a slight dishevelment of his hair. There was blood on his knuckles. Drive, he told Dante, who pulled out of the alley smoothly. Are you hurt? I asked, staring at his hands. Not my blood. He pulled out a handkerchief, not the same one from last night, but similar, and wiped his knuckles clean. I apologize for the interruption. Some business associates have been persistent. Business associates with guns? His jaw tightened. I told you my business has complications. This is insane. I need to go home. Sophia is safe. I have 2 men watching Mrs. Chen's building. No one will touch her. I stared at him. You have men watching my neighbor's apartment? I have men watching everywhere you and Sophia might be. I told you, Emma. You're protected. This isn't protection, this is... I struggled for words. This is kidnapping. You're free to leave anytime you want. His eyes met mine, dark and intense. But I'd prefer you didn't. Not yet. I promised to show you something, remember? After someone just tried to... what? Kill you? Kill us? Kill me, perhaps. You were never the target. They wouldn't dare. The certainty in his voice was absolute. But it does necessitate a change of plans. We're going somewhere more secure. The car was moving through the city, heading away from my neighborhood, away from anything familiar. I should have demanded Dante turn around. Should have called the police. But I was trapped in this impossible situation with this impossible man. And some twisted part of me wanted to see where it led. Where are we going? Home. My home. 20 minutes later, the car passed through iron gates that opened automatically. The driveway wound through manicured grounds, lit by subtle landscape lighting, and then the house appeared. Calling it a house was like calling the ocean a puddle. It was a mansion. All stone and glass and architecture that probably had a fancy Italian name. Lights glowed in windows, and I could see figures moving inside. More security, no doubt. Dante opened my door. Lorenzo was already out, waiting. His hand extended to help me. Against my better judgment, I took it. His fingers closed around mine, warm and strong, and that electric current sparked again. He didn't let go as we walked toward the entrance. The interior was exactly what I'd expected. High ceilings, marble floors, artwork that probably cost more than my entire life. But there was warmth too. Real furniture, not museum pieces. Books on shelves, photos in frames. Your family? I asked, pausing at a collection of photographs on a side table. Was. The single word carried weight. My father, my mother, my sister. All gone now. I'm sorry. He shrugged, but I saw the pain in his eyes. It was a long time ago, this way. He led me through the house to a set of French doors that opened onto a terrace. Beyond it, I could see a pool lit from below, water glowing blue in the darkness. And beyond that, gardens that stretched into shadow. It's beautiful, I admitted. Sophia would love the pool. There's a shallow end, perfect for children. And the gardens have a playhouse my sister used. He paused. I've kept it maintained, just in case. Just in case of what? A 4-year-old girl he'd just met. Lorenzo, this is moving too fast. Last night I was serving drinks, and now I'm at your mansion, there were guns, and you're talking about Sophia playing in your pool. I know. He turned to face me fully. I know this is overwhelming, but Emma, I need you to understand something. From the moment I saw you last night, something shifted in me. Something I didn't think was possible anymore. You don't even know me. I know enough. I know you're strong and brave and devoted to your daughter. I know you've survived hell and come out fighting. I know when I look at you I see. He stopped, his jaw clenching. I see a future I didn't think I could have. You're talking crazy. Am I? He stepped closer, and I should have backed away, but my feet wouldn't move. Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me when I touch you. You don't feel like lightning is running through your veins. His hand came up, fingertips barely grazing my cheek. I gasped at the contact, at the way my entire body seemed to wake up. Tell me, he whispered, that you don't want this as much as I do. I don't. But the words died on my lips because they were lies. God help me, they were lies. I'm not a good man, Emma. I've done things that would horrify you. My world is dark and dangerous and full of monsters. His thumb traced my jawline. But I could keep you safe. You and Sophia. You'd never want for anything. Never be invisible again. Never be hurt. Except by you. The words hung between us. His hand dropped. Yes, he said finally. Except by me. I can't promise I won't hurt you, Piccola. Men like me, we destroy beautiful things. It's in our nature. Then why are you doing this? Because I'm selfish. Because for the first time in 10 years, I want something more than power and revenge. I want... He turned away, running a hand through his hair. I want you to look at me the way you did tonight at dinner. Like I'm a man, not a monster. My heart was hammering against my ribs. This was insane. All of it. And yet... My father, I said suddenly. He was a gambler, owed money to bad people. When I was 16, men came to our house. They hurt him. Badly. Made my mother and me watch. I wrapped my arms around myself. That's why I can't be part of this world again. Can't let Sophia anywhere near it. Lorenzo's entire body had gone rigid. Who were they? I don't know. Some loan sharks. My father died from his injuries 2 weeks later. We lost everything. That's why I was a secretary, why I latched onto Derek. I was trying to find stability, safety. I laughed bitterly. Lot of good that did. The men who hurt your father. Lorenzo's voice was ice. Do you remember anything about them? Names, faces, anything? Why? Because if they're still alive, they won't be after tonight. The casual way he said it should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something else, something warm and dark and dangerous. One of them had a tattoo, a snake on his neck. The other called him... I paused, trying to remember. Sal or Salvatore. Lorenzo pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. What's done? Done. By morning, they'll wish they'd never been born. He looked at me, and his eyes were molten. No one hurts what's mine. Not then. Not now. Not ever. I'm not yours. Not yet. He stepped closer again, and this time I did back up, my back hitting the stone balustrade of the terrace. But you will be, Emma, because despite your fear, despite your very reasonable desire to run from me, you want this. You want someone who sees you, who values you, who would burn the world down to keep you safe. That's not love. That's obsession. Yes. His hands came down on either side of me, caging me in without touching me. It is. And I stopped fighting it the moment I saw you. We were so close I could feel the heat of his body, smell his cologne, see the flecks of gold in those dark eyes. My heart was racing, my breathing shallow, every nerve in my body screaming at me to run. Instead, I whispered, "Kiss me." The words seemed to unlock something in him. His hand came up to cup my face, his thumb brushing across my lower lip. The touch was gentle, reverent almost, completely at odds with the predator I knew lurked beneath his skin. "If I kiss you," he said softly, "I won't stop at just a kiss. I'll want everything. Your time, your trust, your heart. I'll want you and Sophia under my protection. In my home. In my life. I'll want to erase every moment that bastard made you feel small and replace them with moments where you feel worshipped. That's a lot of pressure for one kiss." His laugh was low and dark. "I told you. I'm intense. Kiss me anyway." He did. His lips met mine with surprising gentleness, a soft press that made my knees weak. But then his hand tangled in my hair, tilting my head back, and the kiss deepened into something possessive and demanding. I gasped against his mouth, and he swallowed the sound, his other hand pulling me closer until there was no space between us. I'd been kissed before. Derek had kissed me countless times during our marriage, but this was different. This was being claimed, possessed, consumed. This was lightning and fire and falling into an abyss with no idea if there was a bottom. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. His forehead rested against mine. "Say yes," he whispered. "To what?" "To me. To this. To letting me into your life. I should say no. Every rational thought in my head screamed it. But when I opened my mouth, different words came out. I need time. To think, to figure out what this means. How much time? I don't know. A few days. A week, maybe." His jaw clenched, but he nodded. 1 week. "But Emma, during that week you'll still be protected. My men will watch over you and Sophia. And if you need anything at all, you call me." He pressed a card into my hand, different from the first one, with a second number written on it in pen. "This is my personal line. Only 5 people have this number. Now you're the 6th. Why are you doing this? Because you're worth it. Because Sophia deserves a father figure who will cherish her. Because I'm tired of the dark, and you're the first light I've seen in years." He kissed my forehead gently. "Let me take you home. It's late, and your daughter will want to see you in the morning." The drive back to my apartment was quiet, Lorenzo's hand covering mine on the seat between us. When we pulled up to my building, he walked me to the door, Dante staying discreetly in the car. 1 week? He said again. 1 week, I agreed. He kissed me once more, soft and sweet, then watched until I was safely inside. I climbed the stairs to my apartment in a daze, my lips still tingling, my mind spinning. Through my window, I could see the black Mercedes pulling away, and further down the street, another car. Watching. Protecting. I touched my fingers to my lips and wondered what I'd just gotten myself into. The next morning, reality crashed down like a hammer. I woke to Sophia bouncing on the bed, her small hands patting my face. "Mama! Mama, wake up! Mrs. Chen made pancakes." I groaned and pulled her into a hug, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. For a moment, I could pretend last night hadn't happened, that I hadn't kissed a man who was almost certainly a crime lord, that I hadn't agreed to consider letting him into our lives. But when I walked Sophia back to Mrs. Chen's apartment to collect her overnight bag, I saw it. The black sedan parked across the street, tinted windows, engine idling. Exactly like Lorenzo said there would be. "Everything okay?" Mrs. Chen asked, noticing my distraction. "Fine, just thank you for watching her. Anytime. You know that," she paused. "Your date, it was good?" I thought about guns and blood on knuckles and a kiss that had stolen my breath. It was complicated. She smiled knowingly. The good ones always are. At the cafe that afternoon, I couldn't focus. I mixed up orders, forgot to charge for add-ons, nearly dropped an entire tray of lattes. Rick finally pulled me aside. "Okay, what's going on? You're never like this." "Nothing. I'm just tired. Emma." He gave me the look that said he didn't believe a word. "Is this about those guys?" My heart stopped. "What guys?" "The ones who came in yesterday asking about you. Big guys, expensive suits. They ordered coffee but mostly just asked questions. When you work, where you live, if you have family." Ice flooded my veins. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing." "Jesus, Emma, I'm not stupid. I told them to get lost or I'd call the cops. They left." He frowned. "But they didn't seem like they were going to give up. You in some kind of trouble?" "No, maybe. I don't know." I ran my hands through my hair. What did they look like? One had a neck tattoo. Snake, I think. The other was shorter, stocky, scar on his face. He paused. "Emma, seriously, if you need help." The snake tattoo. Oh God. The men who'd hurt my father. But Lorenzo said, my phone buzzed. A text from the number I'd saved as just L. "The situation from your past has been handled. You won't see those men again. Ever. L." My hands were shaking as I typed back. "What did you do? What was necessary?" "They learned that looking for you was the last mistake they'd ever make. Did you kill them?" 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, "No, but they'll wish I had. They won't bother you again. That's all that matters." I should have been horrified. Should have called the police, reported Lorenzo. Ended this insanity before it went any further. Instead, I felt safe. For the first time since my father died, since Derek left, since I'd been struggling alone to keep Sophia and me afloat, I felt safe. And that terrified me more than anything else. 3 days passed in a strange limbo. I worked my shifts, took care of Sophia, tried to maintain normalcy, but everywhere I went, I saw them. Lorenzo's men, in cars on my street, at the cafe, ordering coffee they didn't drink, at the park where I took Sophia, sitting on benches with newspapers they didn't read. Sophia noticed too. "Mama, why is that man always there? He's just making sure we're safe, baby." "Safe from what?" "From your mother's poor decisions," I thought. But I said, "Nothing. Don't worry about it." On the 4th day, Derek called. I stared at his name on my phone screen, my stomach churning. I hadn't heard from him since the hotel, since Lorenzo had him thrown out. Hello? Emma. His voice was strange, strained. "We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. Please." "Just 5 minutes. Meet me at the Starbucks on Brennan Street. It's important." Everything in me screamed this was a trap, but curiosity and a sick need to know what he wanted won out. 1 hour. And this better be important. I left Sophia with Mrs. Chen again, ignoring her concerned looks. The Starbucks was crowded with the afternoon rush. Derek sat in the corner, and when he looked up at me, I barely recognized him. He looked like hell. Dark circles under his eyes, his suit rumpled, his hands shaking slightly as he gripped his coffee cup. Jesus, Derek. What happened to you? I need you to make a call. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. I need you to tell whoever he is, to back off. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, Emma. The man from the hotel, Castellano. He said the name like a curse. Ever since that night, my life has been falling apart. My clients are dropping me. The partners are talking about pushing me out. My bank accounts are frozen for irregular activity. Melissa left me. He looked up, and there was genuine fear in his eyes. And yesterday, 2 men came to my apartment. They didn't touch me. They just stood there and told me that if I ever spoke to you again, if I even looked at you wrong, they'd make sure I lost everything. And then they'd start taking things I couldn't get back. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. Lorenzo did this. Who else? Emma, please. I know I was an asshole. I know I hurt you. But I'm begging you. Call him off. I'll leave you alone. I'll sign whatever you want. Full custody, child support, anything. Just make him stop. I should have felt triumph. Should have reveled in seeing Derek brought low after everything he'd done to me. Instead, I just felt tired. I'll talk to him, I said finally. But Derek, you earned this. Every bit of it. You destroyed our marriage, abandoned your daughter, and then mocked me in public. What did you think would happen? I didn't think I'd piss off a mob boss. People were starting to stare. I stood. I'll talk to him. But after this, you stay away from me and Sophia. Understand? Yes. God, yes. Thank you, Emma. I left him there, looking small and defeated. The black sedan was waiting when I exited, and this time I walked straight to it. The window rolled down. It was Dante. Miss Emma. Is everything all right? I need to see Lorenzo. Now. He didn't argue, just opened the back door. 20 minutes later, I was walking through the mansion's entrance, my anger building with each step. Lorenzo was in his office, dark wood, leather furniture, and walls lined with books. He looked up from his desk when I entered, his expression shifting from surprise to pleasure. Emma, this is unexpected. What did you do to Derek? He leaned back in his chair, completely unruffled. I ensured he wouldn't bother you again. By destroying his life? By making it clear there are consequences for his actions. Yes. You can't just... I paced, trying to control my temper. You can't terrorize people because they were mean to me. Actually, I can. And I did. He stood, moving around the desk. He hurt you, Emma. He abandoned his daughter. He deserved far worse than what I gave him. That's not for you to decide, isn't it? He stepped closer, his eyes darkening. You're under my protection now. That means anyone who harms you answers to me. I didn't ask for your protection. You didn't have to. His hand came up to cup my face, and despite my anger, I felt that familiar electric current. Emma, I told you what I am. I told you my world is dark. Did you think I was exaggerating? I pulled away from his touch. I don't know what I thought, but this is too much. It's too fast, too intense, too honest? His jaw clenched. Most men would lie to you, would pretend to be something they're not until you're too invested to leave. I'm giving you the truth. Yes, I'm dangerous. Yes, I have power and I use it. Yes, I will destroy anyone who threatens what's mine. If that's too much for you, tell me now. I'm not yours. You kissed me. You let me touch you. You agreed to give this a chance. He stepped closer, backing me against the door. You're mine, Emma, whether you've accepted it yet or not. You're insane. Yes. His lips curved into a dark smile. But I'm honest about it. Can you say the same about any other man in your life? I hated that he had a point. Derek had lied constantly, about loving me, about wanting a family, about everything. At least Lorenzo was upfront about being a monster. I need air, I said, my chest tight. I need to think. Then think here. He gestured to the French doors. The gardens are private. Take all the time you need. But Emma... He caught my hand as I turned away. I'm not sorry for protecting you. I'll never be sorry for that. I pulled free and fled to the gardens, my head spinning. The grounds were extensive, roses and hedges and paths that wound through manicured beauty. I found myself at the playhouse Lorenzo had mentioned, painted cheerful yellow with flower boxes in the windows. It was perfect. Exactly what Sophia would love. That was the problem. All of this was exactly what Sophia would love. The pool, the gardens, the space to run and play, the security, the stability. Everything I'd been desperately trying to give her on my own and failing. Pretty, isn't it? I spun to find an older woman approaching. She wore a simple dress and cardigan, her gray hair pulled back, her face kind. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to trespass." "No trespass. I'm Maria. I manage the house." She smiled. "Lorenzo said you might be out here. He asked me to bring you some tea." She held out a delicate cup, steam rising from amber liquid. I took it automatically. "You're Emma," Maria continued, settling onto the playhouse steps. "He's told me about you and your daughter." "What did he say?" "That you're brave, that you're a good mother, that you're the first person in years to make him smile." She looked at me shrewdly. "That you're scared of him." I wrapped my hands around the warm cup. "Shouldn't I be?" "Yes. Lorenzo is dangerous. His world is violent. The things he's done," she shook her head. "But he's also loyal, protective, and capable of great love. His family, his real family, they died because of betrayal. A rival family attacked. Lorenzo was only 16 when he found his father's body. His mother lasted 3 days before her injuries killed her. His little sister," Maria's voice cracked. "Sophia was only 6. She died in his arms." My heart clenched. That's horrible. It made him what he is. Hard, unwilling to show weakness. Ruthless. She met my eyes. "Until you. I've worked for this family for 30 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. We just met. Sometimes that's all it takes. One look and you know." She stood, patting my shoulder. "Your daughter, Sophia. She's the same age Sophia was, same name even. You think that's coincidence? I think it's concerning. Maybe. Or maybe it's fate giving a broken man a second chance." She started back toward the house, then paused. "He'll never force you to stay, Emma. But if you leave, you'll take the last bit of light left in him. Choose carefully." She left me alone with the tea and my thoughts. I sat on the playhouse steps, staring at the mansion. Through the windows, I could see Lorenzo in his office, talking on the phone. Even from here, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he moved like a caged predator. My phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen with a photo. Sophia coloring at the kitchen table, her tongue stuck out in concentration. My baby girl. My whole world. Could I bring her into this? Into Lorenzo's darkness? But then I thought about the alternative. Struggling alone. Always one emergency away from disaster. Sophia growing up in a tiny apartment, wearing thrift store clothes, while I worked myself to exhaustion trying to provide. Lorenzo could give her everything: safety, stability. A father figure who would actually cherish her. And what would he give me? I remembered his kiss, the way he looked at me like I was precious. The way he destroyed the men who'd hurt my father without me even asking. The way he said my name like a prayer. He'd give me everything. And in return, he'd want everything. The question was I brave enough to give it? I finished my tea, made my decision, and walked back into the house. Lorenzo was still in his office. I didn't knock, just opened the door and walked in. He looked up, his expression guarded. "Emma, I have conditions," I said. His entire demeanor changed. He set down his phone, giving me his complete attention. "Name them." "Sophia comes first, always. If anything you do puts her in danger, I walk. No arguments, no negotiations. I take her and we disappear." Agreed. "I need honesty. I can handle the truth about what you are and what you do, but I can't handle lies. You'll have it. And I need time. This us. It's happening so fast. I need time to adjust, to make sure this is right. How much time? I don't know. But I need to know you'll give it to me." He stood and crossed to me, his eyes intense. "I'll give you whatever you need. But Emma..." His hand came up to cut my face. I meant what I said. "You're mine now. And I protect what's mine with everything I have. Even from yourself. Especially from myself. His thumb brushed across my cheek. I know I'm not what you deserve. I know I'll never be good enough for you or Sophia. But I swear to you, Piccola, I will spend every day trying to be. He kissed me then, slow and deep and full of promise. And when he pulled back, I saw it in his eyes. Not just desire, not just possession, but something deeper. Something that looked almost like, stay for dinner. He said softly, let me call Sophia and Mrs. Chen. Let them come here. Let me show you what life could be like. I should say no. Should take another week to think, to plan, to prepare. Instead, I said, okay. His smile was like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. 2 hours later, Mrs. Chen arrived with Sophia, her eyes wide as she took in the mansion. And Sophia, my beautiful, fearless girl, ran straight to Lorenzo without hesitation. Are you Mama's friend? I am, Lorenzo said, crouching down to her level. And I hope to be your friend too. Would you like to see the playhouse? There's a playhouse? He laughed, a real, genuine laugh, and took her hand. Come on, I'll show you. I watched them walk toward the gardens, Sophia chattering away while Lorenzo listened with complete attention. Mrs. Chen came to stand beside me. That man, she said quietly, is either going to be the best thing that ever happened to you, or the worst. I know. But you're going to try anyway. I am. She patted my arm. Then I'll pray it's the first one. I watched Lorenzo lift Sophia onto his shoulders so she could see into the playhouse windows, heard her delighted squeals, saw the way his expression softened, and I thought, maybe, just maybe, we could make this work. Maybe I'd found something worth the risk. 6 months later, I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and Sophia's laughter echoing from somewhere downstairs. I stretched in the massive bed. Our bed now, though it had taken 3 months before I'd agreed to share it with Lorenzo, and breathed in the scent of coffee wafting up from the kitchen. Real coffee. The expensive kind that Maria made in the elaborate machine Lorenzo had imported from Italy. This was my life now. Our life. The transition hadn't been easy. Those first weeks, I'd kept the apartment, insisted on working my shifts, maintained the illusion of independence even as I spent more and more time at the mansion. Lorenzo had been patient, letting me set the pace, never pushing, even though I could see the restraint cost him. It was Sophia who'd sealed the deal. She'd fallen in love with him almost instantly, or more accurately, with the life he could provide, the playhouse, the pool, the gardens where she could run and play without me worrying about traffic or strangers. Maria, who baked cookies and told stories. Dante, who taught her Italian words and let her sit in the driver's seat of the Mercedes while it was parked. And Lorenzo himself, who treated my daughter like she was the most precious thing in the world. I found them in the kitchen, Sophia perched on the counter in her princess pajamas, helping Maria mix pancake batter, while Lorenzo read the newspaper at the island. He looked up when I entered, and that dark, intense gaze softened immediately. "Buongiorno, Piccola," he said, standing to kiss me. It was chaste, appropriate for the audience, but I felt the promise in it. Later, when Sophia was occupied, there would be nothing chaste about us. "Mama, we're making pancakes with chocolate chips." I see that. But didn't someone brush their teeth yet? Sophia's guilty expression was answer enough. Lorenzo laughed and scooped her up. "Come on, Principessa. Let's take care of that before Maria kicks us both out of her kitchen." I watched them go, my heart doing that strange flip it always did when I saw them together. Lorenzo had been right that first night. He was good with children. Patient, playful, but with clear boundaries that Sophia respected. She'd started calling him Enzo after the first month, and now she ran to him as readily as she ran to me. "Coffee, Miss Emma?" Maria asked, already pouring. "Please." I settled onto one of the island stools. "Is everything ready for tonight?" Tonight was important. Lorenzo was hosting a dinner with several of his associates, the first time I'd be present for one of his business meetings. He'd wanted me to understand his world completely. All of it, including the parts most wives were shielded from. "Everything is prepared. Dinner for 8, the dining room is set, and Dante has confirmed everyone's arrival times." Maria paused. "Are you nervous?" Terrified, I admitted. She smiled. Don't be. They'll see what Lorenzo sees, a strong woman who makes him happy. That's all that matters to his people. His people. I was still getting used to that phrase. Lorenzo ran what he called a family business, though we both knew what that meant. Import, choice, export was the legitimate front, but beneath it was a network of power and influence that stretched across the city and beyond. I'd asked for honesty, and he'd given it. The restaurants, the clubs, the various businesses, they were real, but they also served other purposes. Money laundering, meeting places, fronts for less legal activities. He didn't deal drugs, didn't traffic people. Those were his hard lines. But protection, gambling, certain selective thefts from those who could afford the loss, that was fair game. It should have horrified me. Part of me thought it still should, but I'd also seen the other side, the way he protected this neighborhood, kept it safe, the way families could walk the streets at night without fear because everyone knew this was Castellano territory. The way he quietly paid medical bills for people who couldn't afford them, ensured businesses could stay open even when they struggled, made sure kids had what they needed for school. He was a criminal, but he was also, in his own twisted way, a protector. Lorenzo returned with Sophia, her teeth brushed and her hair pulled into pigtails. There, presentable. Enzo did my hair, Sophia announced proudly. I examined his handiwork, surprisingly neat for a man whose hands I'd seen break bones. Very nice. Now go help Maria with those pancakes. Once she was occupied, Lorenzo pulled me close, his arms wrapping around my waist. You're thinking too hard. I can see it. Just nervous about tonight. They'll love you. How could they not? He kissed my temple. And if any of them look at you wrong, I'll break their fingers. Lorenzo. What? I'm being honest. But he was smiling. That rare, genuine smile that still took my breath away. The day passed in a blur of preparations. Maria cooked, Sophia played, and Lorenzo disappeared into his office for several hours of phone calls and meetings. I spent the time getting ready, choosing a dress from the wardrobe Lorenzo had gradually filled. Deep emerald green, elegant, but not ostentatious. When I emerged, Lorenzo was waiting in the hallway. He wore a black suit, his hair styled back, and when he saw me, he went completely still. Bellissima, he breathed. You're going to make every man in that room wish he were me, and you'll break their fingers, at minimum. He offered his arm. Ready? No, but let's do this anyway. The dining room had been transformed. Crystal and china gleamed on the long table, candles provided soft lighting, and the smell of Maria's cooking filled the air. The first guests began arriving at 7. Men in expensive suits, some with wives, all with an air of carefully controlled danger. I recognized the type now, could see the way they moved, the way their eyes constantly scanned for threats, the subtle bulges under jackets that meant weapons. These were Lorenzo's trusted circle, his captains and advisors. Everyone, Lorenzo said, his hand warm on my lower back. This is Emma. He paused, looking at me with something in his eyes I couldn't quite read. My fiancé. The room went silent. I stared at him, my heart stopping. Lorenzo, I whispered. What? He pulled a box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a ring that probably cost more than my childhood home. Diamonds and emeralds, elegant and beautiful and terrifying. I was going to wait, he said quietly, his voice pitched just for me, though everyone was watching. But I don't want to wait anymore. Emma, you and Sophia have become everything to me. You've brought light into a life I thought would always be dark. You've given me a reason to be better, to build something beyond just power and revenge. He took the ring from the box. Marry me. Make it official. Let me be Sophia's father in more than just practice. Let me spend the rest of my life protecting you both and thanking whatever fate brought you into that ballroom 6 months ago. Tears were streaming down my face. You're supposed to ask in private, not in front of... I wanted witnesses, so you'd know I meant it, so everyone would know. His eyes held mine, intense and vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. So, there would be no doubt that you're mine and I'm yours. I should think about it, should consider all the implications. should be rational and careful and smart. Instead, I said, yes. The room erupted in applause and cheers as Lorenzo slid the ring onto my finger and kissed me hard enough to make me dizzy. When we finally broke apart, his men were grinning. Actual genuine pleasure on faces that usually showed nothing but cold calculation. "About damn time, boss," one of them called out. "We were starting to think you'd never ask." "You knew?" I asked. "Bella." Another man, Gio, I remembered, said with a laugh. "We've known since that first night, the way he looked at you. We knew you were it for him. Dinner was a revelation. These dangerous men, these criminals and enforcers, were warm and funny and surprisingly normal. They asked about Sofia, complimented Maria's cooking, told embarrassing stories about Lorenzo that made him roll his eyes, but also smile. And through it all, Lorenzo's hand found mine under the table, his thumb tracing circles on my palm, his eyes constantly checking to make sure I was okay. After dessert, after the guests had left with promises to attend our wedding, Lorenzo and I stood on the terrace looking out at the gardens. Inside, Sofia slept peacefully in her room, her permanent room now, decorated exactly how she wanted with princess wallpaper and a canopy bed. "I really am nervous about marrying a mob boss," I said into the quiet. "Technically, I prefer businessman with complicated associates." I laughed, leaning into his warmth. "What happens now?" "Now?" He turned me to face him, his hands cupping my face with a gentleness that still surprised me. "Now we plan a wedding. Now I legally adopt Sofia so she has my name and my protection forever. Now we build a life together, despite all the complications and danger and darkness. What if something happens to you?" His expression darkened. "It won't. But if it does, then you and Sofia will be taken care of. I've made arrangements. Money, property, protection, all of it goes to you. And my men, they've sworn to protect you both if anything happens to me. You'll never be alone or vulnerable again. I don't want your money. I want you. And you have me." He kissed me softly, all of me. The good, the bad, and the terrifying. For as long as we both live, we stood there in the moonlight, and I thought about the journey that had brought us here. From that humiliating night at the hotel to this moment, engaged to a man I'd feared and then fallen for, despite every rational reason not to. He was dangerous. He was a criminal. He'd probably done things that would give me nightmares if I knew the details. But he was also the man who made my daughter laugh, who looked at me like I was precious, who'd given us safety and stability and a home. The man who'd taken my broken pieces and carefully put them back together into something stronger than before. "I love you," I said, the words coming easily now. I know I don't say it enough, but I do. I love you, Lorenzo Castellano, mob boss and businessman and complicated man. His eyes closed briefly, and when they opened, they were suspiciously bright. Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you. I love you. He kissed me, deep and passionate and full of promise. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "I should check on Sofia," I said reluctantly. "She's fine. Maria's monitoring the cameras." He smiled at my expression. "What?" "I'm not leaving my daughter's safety to chance." "My daughter." The words made my heart swell. "Take me to bed," I whispered. His eyes darkened with heat. "Yes, ma'am." 3 months later, I stood in a private chapel wearing a dress that probably cost more than my old car. Sofia stood beside me in a matching flower girl dress, bouncing on her toes with excitement. "Ready, Mama?" "Ready, baby." The doors opened, and I saw Lorenzo waiting at the altar. He wore a black tuxedo, his hair perfect, his face carefully neutral, but I saw his eyes, saw the love and possession and promise in them. I walked toward him with Sofia's hand in mine. My daughter who would officially become his daughter today. My future, my family, my life. When I reached him, he took both our hands. "My girls," he said softly. "Finally, officially, mine." The ceremony was short, simple, perfect. When the priest pronounced us husband and wife, Lorenzo kissed me with enough passion to make our guests cheer. Then he knelt down and looked at Sofia. "Sofia Castellano," he said, trying out her new name. How does that sound? Perfect. She threw her arms around his neck. Does this mean you're my daddy now, if you want me to be? I do want you to be my daddy. He hugged her tight, and I saw tears on his cheeks. This man who'd killed, who'd destroyed, who lived in darkness, crying because a 4-year-old girl called him daddy. The reception was lavish, hundreds of guests, endless champagne, a 10-tier cake. But the moment I'd remember forever was later, when we snuck away from the party to check on Sophia. We found her asleep in one of the mansion's guest rooms, still in her flower girl dress, Dante standing guard outside her door. She wanted to stay at the party, Dante explained with a smile, but she fell asleep during dinner. Lorenzo carried her upstairs to her room, and I followed, watching as he carefully changed her into pajamas without waking her, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. Thank you, he whispered to her sleeping form. Thank you for letting me be your father. We stood there in the doorway, watching her sleep, and I felt complete in a way I'd never experienced before. Mrs. Castellano, Lorenzo said, pulling me close. How does it feel? Terrifying. Perfect. Right, good. He kissed the top of my head. Because you're stuck with me now, for better or worse. Mostly worse, knowing you. Undoubtedly. But he was smiling. We returned to the party, danced until dawn, celebrated with the strange family Lorenzo had built around himself. And when it was finally over, when the last guest had left and the sun was rising over the gardens, Lorenzo carried me to our bedroom and made love to me with a tenderness that made me cry. I've got you, he whispered against my skin. For the rest of our lives, Piccola, I've got you. And finally, completely, I believed him. 2 years later, I found them in the garden, Sophia, now 6 and fearless, teaching her baby brother Marco how to smell the roses. Lorenzo sat nearby, his jacket discarded, his sleeves rolled up, watching them with an expression of pure contentment. Gently, Marco, Sophia instructed, her tone identical to the one I used with her. Smell, don't grab. Marco, at 18 months, had other ideas. He grabbed the rose, thorns and all, then looked surprised when it pricked him. His face crumpled. Lorenzo was there in an instant, scooping him up, examining the tiny dot of blood on his chubby finger. You're all right, Piccolino. Just a small hurt, see? He kissed the finger. All better. Marco's tears stopped immediately, replaced by his father's smile. My son, our son, looked so much like Lorenzo it was almost eerie. Same dark eyes, same intense expression even as a toddler. I watched my family, this impossible family I'd built with a dangerous man, and felt overwhelming gratitude. The last 2 years had been full of changes. Lorenzo had gradually shifted his business toward more legitimate enterprises, partly because I'd asked, and partly because he wanted Marco to inherit something cleaner. He was still powerful, still dangerous, but the worst of the violence had been left to his trusted lieutenants. Derek was gone, moved to another state after the divorce was finalized, and he'd signed away all rights to Sophia. She barely remembered him now, knew only Lorenzo as her father. The adoption had been finalized 1 month after our wedding. The men who'd hurt my father were, as Lorenzo had promised, no longer a concern. I didn't ask for details. I didn't want to know. Our life wasn't perfect. Lorenzo still had enemies, still dealt with threats I was shielded from. But we were happy. Sophia thrived, excelling in the private school Lorenzo had enrolled her in. Marco was healthy and loved. And Lorenzo and I had built something real beneath the passion and possession. Genuine partnership, trust, love. Mama, Sophia called. Come see. Marco tried to eat the rose. I walked over to my family, and Lorenzo pulled me down beside him, his arm around my waist, his lips brushing my temple. Happy? He asked quietly. I looked at our children playing in the garden of our home, at the life we'd built despite everything. Deliriously, I said, and I meant it. The girl who'd been invisible, who'd served drinks to people who didn't see her, who'd been mocked by her ex-husband at a party, she was gone. In her place was Mrs. Emma Castellano, wife of one of the city's most powerful men, mother of 2 beautiful children, woman who'd found her strength by accepting love from the most dangerous source. Lorenzo kissed me, slow and deep, while our children played nearby. Ti amo, piccola, he whispered. Forever. Forever, I agreed. And this time, I knew forever was a promise we'd both keep.